Please enjoy the following messages from our sponsors.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow is what we make it. And we're making it happen today. By providing the energy life demands while reducing our environmental impact. We know there's no single path to net zero, and we're committed to putting in the energy to get there. Because when we step up and meet the challenges of today, tomorrow is on.
This repair bill's gonna blow my budget.
It doesn't have to, Hope. After our last financial wellness review, we set up a line of credit for emergencies.
Oh, we did do that.
And you can transfer money to your checking account right from the mobile app.
Becca, you were always there for me.
I tried.
Just gonna get some pretzels. Okay. Can you get those for me?
Oh yeah, for sure.
For every financial need, we'll meet you in the moment. KeyBank opens doors.
Okay, are you ready? You're all set.
Hi there, I'm here to help.
Not only do we have the largest network of doctors and hospitals in Michigan, we also make sure access to the care you need is right at your fingertips.
I think we made a lot of progress today. You have really come a long way. You should be proud of yourself.
Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, always ready to help.
Distinguished guests, welcome to the 2025 International Women's Day Luncheon, presented by Community Financial Credit Union. Please welcome the Chief Operating Officer of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Tammy Carnrike.
Good morning, good morning. Can you hear me in the back of the room? Yes, yes? Perfect. Good morning. And welcome to the Detroit Regional Chamber's annual International Women's Day Lunch, presented this year by Community Financial Credit Union. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to this momentous celebration. Today we come together not just to celebrate, but to ignite a powerful movement. One that calls us to accelerate action for gender equality. Let's take a moment to reflect on the stark reality that is before us. If we continue at our current pace, full gender equality will remain out of reach until the year 2158. 2158. That's a wake-up call for all of us. Gender equality is essential on the stark reality before us. Gender equality, that's a lot to say. Gender equality is essential to all of our collective success. Together we must tackle the systematic barriers and the biases that continue to impede both women, both personally and professionally. So today, I hope you had a chance to visit the wellness hubs. As today's programming has always started with this through our wellness hubs from Blue Cross, Blue Shield of Michigan, Community Financial Credit Union, Corewell Health, the Girl Scouts of Southern Michigan. Everybody get their cookies? Henry Ford Health, Maya's Flower Truck. I saw a lot of flowers rolling around. Sponsored by Enbridge. And then Michigan Humane, sponsored by KeyBank, those little cute kittens, and the W. Buchanan Group. When you engage with each of these hubs, you will receive a stamp on your bingo card. You should have a bingo card. If you didn't, you're still going to have some time after the program is over. Once you've completed a full row or the entire bingo card, you can take it back to the check-in table where you came in and leave it for a chance to win some great prizes. And if you haven't had to visit again, please, you'll have some time after lunch. There is one agenda change that I'd like to make sure and mention to you today. Brittany Levis can no longer be with us today. However, we're thrilled to hear from the other impactful speakers who are here with us. You'll be hearing from them very soon. So lastly, let me acknowledge our generous sponsors who made today's event achievable. And when I announce you, please feel free to stand from your table and be recognized. Our presenting sponsor, Community Financial Credit Union. Wow, you came to show. Our platinum sponsor, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Where's my friends? Our gold sponsors, Enbridge and Key Bank. Our silver sponsors, Corewell Health, Henry Ford Health, and the W. Buchanan Group. And our bronze sponsor, Visit Detroit. Where's our friends from Visit Detroit? Yeah. Oh, I think they just, all right, they just took over. They really are showing. And then our production partner, which we could not do this type of quality production without Creative Day Technologies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of the W. Buchanan Group, Dana Armenteros.
Hola, buenos dias. Good morning to everyone. My name is Dana Armenteros. I'm the CEO, as she mentioned, of the W. Buchanan Group. Tammy, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about what the Detroit Regional Chamber has mentioned as it relates to women today in our society. Knowledge, of course, is really important. I'm here to guide us through a meditation today. I notice some of you are already eating, but feel free if you still want to continue eating. I get it. You're hungry. You eat. If you're able to put the forks down and finish your food, that'll be great too. So that we can be in the present moment as it is. I'm going to guide us through a meditation. We have a few minutes here. But one thing I want to share with everybody is the following, and that is that we cannot control, as Tammy mentioned, there's a lot of struggles that are happening, that continue to happen, right? That continue to happen, whether it's, opportunities in the workforce, whether it's at home, whatever it is. We cannot control the outside world. We cannot. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. But we certainly can control how we respond. We can control, what we do in the morning, how we live our lives. That we can have control over. And what meditation allows us to do is to really dig inside. That's what we can do. Everything else is going to be everything else. But it's super, super powerful. So what we're going to do these next few minutes is just a couple of types of meditation. My company does corporate wellness. We also work with partners like Henry Ford and other companies in rehab facilities. DWIN is a big client of ours where I work with, and my other yoga therapists work with people who are in recovery for alcoholism and drug addiction to learn how to calm their minds, because the body will get relief eventually. It just will. So if we focus on the external, our body will get stressed out and it will eventually need relief. So what can we do so that we can find that inner peace inside? So this is what we're going to practice today. So on the next inhale, lift your shoulders up. And on your exhale, gently slide your shoulder blades down your back. If it's available to you to sit at the edge of the chair, what this permits you to do is to have a tall, straight spine. And so we're just going to get some gentle movement first, and then we'll close it off with a guided meditation as it relates to breath awareness, because our breath is what we can observe and notice and make any changes that we need. So on your next inhale, tall, straight spine, and on your exhale, gently turn your head to the right. Just go as far as you can where you're not in pain. Inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhale, turn your head gently to the left. Inhale back to center. Exhale, turn your head to the right. Inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhale to the left. Inhale back to center. Exhale, gently bring your chin to your chest. Inhale back to center. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale back to center. Exhale, gently lean your head back. Be mindful of your neck. Inhale back to center. Exhale, gently lean your head back. Inhale back to center. Exhale, bring your right ear towards your right shoulder. Inhale back to center. Exhale, left ear, left shoulder. Inhale back to center. Exhale, right ear, right shoulder. Inhale back to center. Exhale, left ear, left shoulder. Inhale back to center. What we're going to do now is we're going to put our left hand on our right knee. Right hand is just below the left. Tall, straight spine on the inhale. And on the exhale, gently slide your right hand towards your right hip as you gently turn to the right. Inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhale, gently slide your right hand towards your right hip, twisting to the right. Inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhale, gently release slowly. And place your right hand on your left knee, left hand below the right. Inhale, tall, straight spine. Exhale, twist to the left. Inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhale, twist to the left. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, gently release. If you're able to stay at the edge of your chair, we're going to close off with a meditation of breath awareness. If by sitting at the edge of the chair causes you pain in any way, just slide your back to the back of the chair like so, okay? What we did was we moved the spine in 6 directions. That leads to a healthy spine. So you can place your hands on your thighs, or you can flip your hands over, the back of the hands on the knees. If they reach, you can cup your hands. The area that you're going to focus on is the area below the tip of the nose, above the upper lip. So again, on the next inhale, lift your shoulders up. Exhale, slide your shoulder blades down your back. Eyes are closed if you're willing to. Breathe in and out through the nose, focusing on the area above your upper lip. Observing the heartbeat in your chest. Notice how your chest rises on the inhale and how it falls on the exhale. Observe the tongue in your mouth. And if your mind is traveling to a lot of different places, thinking about what to do next, just observe that and come back to your natural breath. Start again. Focus on the area above your upper lip. Keep coming back to your breath. Your natural breath in and out through the nose. And gently releasing, and just notice how you feel. For those that would like to, placing the palms at heart center, chin to chest, just thinking of gratitude. Take it out and share it with others. Namaste.
Please welcome the Marketing Director at Community Financial Credit Union, Emily Sutton.
So I am so sorry to be interrupting a quiet moment of meditation. My 3-year-old Griffin up there, fully in the why phase. 0 moments of quiet in my house. Mama, why is Elsa making it snow so much? Is she angry? Mama, why is the sun sleeping? And Mama, why is your hair pink? Now, the last one is easy to answer. My hair is pink because I work at Community Financial Credit Union. Now, I didn't know the first thing about credit unions when I joined 5 years ago, except for what my mom told me. Emily, you gotta get your auto loan through a credit union. They have the best rates. And to her credit, she's not wrong. But what I found was a place that for the first time in my life, I could be my true, authentic self every single day. Bright hair, colorful tattoos, a deep, deep desire to dress like Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. I love her. And a passion to lead. I know that I am enough. And all of you in this room today, you are enough. But I didn't always feel that way. In a crowded room like the one we're in today, I have felt completely alone. And I'm not the only one. A recent American Psychiatric Association study showed that 30% of adult Americans feel lonely at least once a week in the past year. 10% say that they have felt lonely every single day. That number only increases as you start looking at younger demographics. Doom scrolling does not always equal connection. Creating spaces where people feel seen matters. And it shouldn't be contingent on how many zeros you have in your bank account. Remember Hurricane Helene back in September? Our member Stephanie does. She went from rested and relaxed on a vacation to stressed and stranded at an airport in Pennsylvania. Panicked, she called our care center. I need help. How the heck do I make it home safely with a credit limit almost to its max and checking funds dipping lower and lower? We reassured her. While the rain was covering the coast, we were covering her with her Close Enough account. More than any other group, women and single moms are impacted by overdraft and NSF fees. More than any other group. Now, my next story comes with a trigger warning that I want everyone to be aware of. Many of you may be familiar with a question that went viral last spring that was posed to women. If you were walking alone in the woods, would you prefer to encounter a man or a bear? Resoundingly, the answer was the bear. Now, when 47% of women experience domestic violence within their lifetime and intimate partner violence within their lifetime, that answer isn't surprising. And then when you take into account that 94 to 99% of those domestic violence cases include economic abuse, again, up to 99% of domestic violence cases include economic abuse. We said enough is enough. The Choose the Bear initiative came to life. And we're about to head even deeper into bear territory this summer with our You Are Enough tour. Meet Laura Killingbeck. She is an adventurer, a cyclist, an author, a kind, down-to-her-bones human being, and living my personal dream of residing in a tiny home. I tried for a while to convince my husband that we could live the tiny home lifestyle. His response was I could park my tiny home in his normal-sized home's driveway. We compromised on a she shed. But for 8 weeks, Laura's gonna hop on her bike, potentially named Grizzly, we love a bear theme, and make her way starting at the very tip of our state, all the way down to Detroit, showcasing the beauty that is Michigan. But along her way, that piece is only part of it. She's going to be on her journey, spreading awareness around resources that are available to women throughout Michigan for domestic and sexual violence, and building awareness around the conversation of women empowerment, all culminating in a celebration of women event where all of those messages that so many of you left at our safe space today will be showcased. Now, none of this work would be possible on our own. We're a credit union. While we can help support the economic piece of this, we knew we needed guidance. That is where our friends from First Step of Wayne County come in. The work that they do supporting survivors of domestic and sexual violence is truly life-changing. And with their support, we've created a pilot loan program that so far has helped over 40 survivors, and we can't wait to do more. Now, I'd love to see all of you at the Women's Celebration in July, or following along Laura's journey on social media. But regardless, in this room, whether you fought off a hurricane, whether you love biking the trails throughout Michigan, or if you're just sitting in this room right now, at Community Financial Credit Union, we just want you to know that you are enough. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of SAMAC Communications, Christy McDonald.
Well, good afternoon. Lunch, fantastic, I trust. Isn't it nice being all together like this? Everyone looks fabulous. I see the pops of pink everywhere, which is meaning like, please, spring, come along. I'm Christy McDonald. I am so happy to be back here emceeing the Detroit Regional Chamber's International Women's Day event. This is the 8th year, and I have emceed all 8 years. It's an 8-timers club, my friends. And I have to say thank you to Tammy and to Marianne for putting on a program that has just grown. Every single year, it is so valuable to get into a room together, all of these fabulous women and the men who support them in leadership, to have real conversations about what we need to work on together. A lot of you see me as one thing over here on the right side of the screen. That's usually how you see me appear. I have been in media in Detroit for a very, very long time. But that other picture is what I'm really like in my natural habitat. That is me with my 3 kids, and we were moving in my son to his college dorm room this past fall. That's the cleanest that room has been since. It's a level 3 hazmat situation now. I don't go in. I just say, Josh, is everything okay? He's like, I washed the towel, Mom, a couple weeks ago. And that's all I need to know. But when I was thinking about the theme for today, and we talk about International Women's Day, and the theme is Accelerate Action. And we talk about all of the various policies that we can work on. We talk about making sure there's equality with women in leadership positions and the salaries that go along with it. It's all about what can we do to make it work a little bit faster. We talked a little bit about control earlier on, about how there's only so many things that we can control. And one of the things that I thought about as I prepared to talk to you today is really, we have our own stories and the power of telling our own story, which is major connection. And I know this because it's been my job. I have been in media in Michigan for 30 years. It was 30 years in January. Don't do the math. Don't try to do the math on that. For 27 of those years, I have been on television, so I figured I would give you every hairdo that I've had for the past 27 years. Some were ill, some were bad choices. But it was my job to ask the questions and bring the stories out from everyone. And it was always so interesting, the details. It makes us remember things. Sometimes I was with people and helped tell their stories on the worst days of their lives. and some I was able to tell the stories and celebrate with them on some of the best days of our lives. I know that internal connection because when we hear other people's stories and the details, the struggles that they've gone through, we feel closer to them. We feel like, me too. And we feel, my gosh, I'm not alone. As a journalist, though, I kind of got into this box of I tell the stories, I don't particularly share my story. I was kind of this outsider where you saw things glossed a certain way. We all know how social media projects maybe how we appear in the world, how we want ourselves to appear in the world, because we want to make it look okay that she's got it all together, right? Well, I felt that way, and I didn't really share my story until possibly the worst thing in the world happened to me. This is a picture on my camera roll of a cup of coffee. It was taken in the first week of January of 2019, and it was the last picture I took before my life changed forever. This cup of coffee was for my husband, Jamie. He was having a colonoscopy that morning, and he had fasted, of course, and if anyone's done their colonoscopy prep, you know it's not grand. And he had gone to work that morning. He is a radio host on 97.1 The Ticket for all of our sports fans out there. And so he had done his show, and he went and had a colonoscopy, and I'm like, this cup of coffee is for you when you wake up, and then we'll go home and we'll continue on with our day. 2 hours after I took that picture, we found out that they found a mass in his colon. 5 days later, after a CT scan, we found out that not only did he have cancer in his colon, that he had innumerable tumors on his liver and in his abdomen. Too many damn tumors to even count them, which I couldn't quite understand. At that moment, our lives changed forever. Stage 4 cancer diagnosis. He was 47 years old. He had no symptoms, and we had 3 children. One in elementary school, one in middle school, and one in high school. You stop and you think, what do you do next? And I did all the research and all of the things, and we didn't tell anyone that he was fighting cancer. He told his radio partner and he told his boss. Nobody at my work at Detroit Public Television knew. We told our families, and we told maybe about a handful of friends. But no one who saw us move through our lives, our professional lives, on television, on the radio, knew what we were fighting. We kept it so close, and we thought it was the best thing to be able to say, oh, look, there's our family, everything is fine, when it wasn't. But that's what people really want to see, right? Whereas we sat there and we didn't have the connection. We didn't open up to people to share the struggle so people could say, oh my gosh, we know what you're going through, or how can we help you? We tried to keep it in, as no one else really wants to hear and know our story. But the truth is, we all carry things that change us. 19 months after that diagnosis, Jamie finally went on the radio in July of 2020 to announce that he was fighting colon cancer. That day, I also called my boss to say, by the way, my husband is fighting colon cancer, and I think he's dying, and I'm not coming into work this week. He died 6 days later after he made that announcement. And all of a sudden, everything that I thought that I had kept in and glossed to make it seem like it was all okay and that it was all perfect and had it all together was public, was messy, was full of grief. And for me, it was, what next? How do I do this now? And I then had to appear in the world as, I don't have it all together. I am now a widow. I am a solo parent, and I have to navigate how I want to be in the world, how I want to appear in the world, and what has happened to me that now drives how I want to be in the world. And that is really the amazing part, is we all have our own stories about why we are here today, why we do the work we do, why we volunteer at the places that we do, how we have certain friendships, because of the stories that we have in our lives, and that's the rich stuff. That's the good stuff. the details that we can share with people so they can see you as human, as they can see you with someone who's had challenge. We don't want the gloss. We want the reality. We live in that social media world where we can put that filter on and like put the fan on and everyone looks amazing. We have AI now that can write our emails and do our PowerPoints. Though my 16-year-old did this PowerPoint. She did a great job. She did a great job. But it brings us back to what makes us human and what brings our connection to each other. And it's knowing and owning your story and revealing it to people, saying, hey, this is me. This is how I am. In the 4 years since Jamie died, it's been a crazy road for me. A crazy journey of how do I appear? What do I do next? What do I want to do next? And I'll tell you, having people know my story, know where I've been, on my knees, and now still standing and still moving forward, has made me better at my job. I was a better journalist. I was able to listen better. I can feel energy from people if they're going through something. And I'm sure 75% of you could raise your hand today and say, I'm caretaking right now for a parent, a spouse, a special needs child, or I'm going through something on my own. Now, it's interesting because we say, how do we own our own story, right? Is it when the CEO walks by and says, how you doing today? You're like, well, let me tell you. I'm going to start listing off the things. How much time do you have, right? So it's really interesting to think about, okay, so how do we own our own story? How do we put ourselves out there with vulnerability to say, I see you. I know something's gone on. How can I help you in a certain way? I've got a couple things that you can think about. 3 things. 1, listen to your inner compass, right? I'm a big believer in following your gut. We have all had interactions with people where you feel like, that's someone I can talk to. That's someone I can trust. This is a good situation for me to be able to open up just a little bit and share. So find that person. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it is in personal situations where you feel that energy from them. You can feel that someone's ready to receive your story, and then think about how you interact with people. Are you open? Do you have that kind of receiving energy that, hey, you can tell me. I gotta tell you, table 7 over here, we were starting to talk about menopause. And JoAnn, and someone's like, hello. And JoAnn was like, people aren't talking about it. But when I started talking about it, people started saying, oh my gosh, thank you for saying something because. And then all of a sudden you're connected to someone in a different way. You have something a little bit in common, or they understand where you came from and how you walked into the room. Because we all bring that with us. Be intentional with your connection. This is not scattershot. I'm going to tell the whole world what's going on with me right now. Putting out a memo at work. Find a time and place. We all prepare for a presentation. We all prepare to have conversations at work that are important to us. Be intentional about this. You know what? I think that there's someone I can kind of talk to. They seem to be walking this way, usually at this time of day. I'm going to pop into their office and take a couple of moments. Or say, let's grab a cup of coffee. Be intentional about it. Because then you can ask the beautiful questions. I love this phrase. I wish I could take credit for it. I cannot. It is from an Irish poet named David White. What are beautiful questions? So many times we say, how you doing? How was your weekend? Good, that's great, fine. We don't even care about the answer, right? A beautiful question, though, could be, oh my gosh, so what did you do this weekend? Tell me more. What brought you joy? Different things like that to bring out a little bit of detail. So then you can ask about it again when you see someone a little week later. Oh my gosh, you told me that you went to that event with your husband. So what karaoke song did you do? That would be a great story, right? Don't you want to know who someone's karaoke song is? So I pulled this quote from David. The ability to ask beautiful questions, often in very unbeautiful moments, is one of the great disciplines of a human life. And a beautiful question starts to shape your identity as much by asking it as it does by having it answered. You just have to keep asking. And if you think about that, it is a two-way street. So it's not just listening to someone else, it's sharing yourself as well. And it all brings back to, we only have our humanity in connection with each other. AI will take care of the rest. That's true. It'll do all the things that we need to do so it can free up time for us to connect with each other, because that is how we are going to get things done. By sharing ourselves, understanding who we sit across the table from, what their story is, what has led them to this place, what drives them to be where they are today. And when we can understand that more, we can accelerate action. We can make things happen. I want to thank you so much for listening to my story, which has not been easy to share, but this room is amazing. Thank you very much.
Please welcome the Senior Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of DTE Energy, JoAnn Chávez.
Well, good afternoon. Well, that's going to be a very tough act to follow, but I almost feel like she cheated. She took my discussion and cheated, and you'll understand why very soon. So I am JoAnn Chávez Rodriguez, and I am 100% Mexican American. So I always like to start with my favorite quote of all time from the Honorable Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And she said, "I'm just an ordinary person who has been blessed with extraordinary opportunities." And I feel like that is me. You know, my life has presented me with many, many experiences and opportunities, each of them independently profound, but together extremely transformational. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I attended a predominantly white institution as a female Mexican American, where they didn't have very many women there yet, and clearly no people that were brown or black. I've been exposed to conscious and unconscious biases in the workplace because I am always the first and only. I have climbed that corporate ladder, and I think I've won, and I've traveled the world twice over. All of these things collectively have made me the woman that I am today. Take it or leave it. But I have grown to believe there are three things that I hold dear to me. One, success does not require assimilation. I don't have to pretend that I'm not a woman. I don't have to pretend that I'm not Mexican. I don't have to pretend that I am not different. Two, we have an obligation to lead our communities. We have a great privilege, all of us sitting in this room. And if you don't realize that this moment, then shame on you. And I really mean that. There are so many people in the world struggling and having so many things going on, but look at us, we're enjoying lunch. We're celebrating International Women's Day. So remember, you do have that obligation. And three, remember that our sense of responsibility to all of these other people will help fuel and be the battery for us when we have fear. It'll help us overcome our fear. And rest assured, we all have fear. I'm scared to death right now. Right? And I've done keynotes, I've done commencement speeches to 3,000 people, and this is the scariest room I've been in a very long time. So who am I? Who am I really? I'm a sixth-generation Mexican American, born and raised in Detroit. And I stand on the shoulders of my Mexican ancestors, immigrants and Tejanos. My mother obtained her GED the year I graduated from the University of Notre Dame with my BBA in 1986. And my father, an alcoholic, died in 1990, the same year I graduated from Notre Dame Law School. We are sixth-generation Mexican Americans on my maternal side because the US expanded into my country. with the Treaty of Hidalgo when they took over Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico. And all of a sudden, we became Americans overnight. Someone ought to call Washington. But here's the thing. It took more than 138 years for my family to have its first high school graduate, and that's me. I grew up with very little. I usually say I grew poor, but poor is such a relative term. My parents married very young. My cousins joined gangs. They were incarcerated and died of overdoses. Even my only sister, and I only had one sibling, lost her children, her 3 children to me, with her fight against drugs, alcohol, and the barrio. She died in 2015 at the age of 48. And now her kids, my kids, our kids, are 28, 29, and 30. My mother died this past year, and so I'm an orphan now. And that's a weird word. But that's a conversation for a whole nother day and a lot more Kleenex. My father was always an activist, both in the unions and for La Raza, right? That's what he grew up in. He's a child of the 60s, or I'm the child of the 60s. He was the child of the 40s, right? And he also told me, never forget where you come from. And I haven't. But I earned a seat at the big table, didn't I? I say I took the pen, I gathered the paper, I created a voice worth hearing. My family did not write my story, but they fostered my resilience and my grit. I wrote my narrative. While I'd always been a big dreamer, I'm also extremely practical. I knew that I was going to need some economic security if I was going to be the strong voice for my family and for my communities. But I wasn't sure how any of this was going to work. I didn't know anything about careers. We didn't sit and talk about things at our dinner table about trading stocks or saving for retirement or becoming CEOs or college presidents. We talked about none of that. I had no role models, and I didn't have mentors. And I often describe my journey as traveling the road alone. That's why I'm here today, because none of us should ever have to travel that road alone again. We owe it to one another. You know, over the years, I feel like I've learned the written, but more importantly, the unwritten rules, and really, most of the time, believe that I've achieved life and career success. I'm on my 3rd career. I was an international tax partner with KPMG. Then I got 3 kids by myself, resigned, got another job, became then the VP of tax at DTE. And then the kids grew up. And in 2015 probably, I decided that I needed something bigger, better, and a bigger seat at the table. But I wasn't just doing it for me. I felt like I was so close that I had to think about how we were going to work together, and I created my path to the chief legal officer all by myself. I've never been tapped on the shoulder. I know you all know people like that. No one has ever told me that I am going to be the most important thing in the room or that I'm extremely talented, but I told myself. I told myself that I was going to do this. So I always talk too much. I think I'm speaking too slowly. I timed this. But I am going to say this in closing. It is my favorite quote from Cesar Chávez. And he says, "Once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. And you cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore. Don't be afraid. Go out, do something. That's what this is about. That's what accelerating action is about. Going out and ensuring that your voice is heard. We all know it matters, but are they hearing it? Thank you.
Please welcome the Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Invest Detroit, Patti Glaza.
All right, good afternoon. It is such a pleasure to be here and celebrate International Women's Day with all of you. All right, so we talk about our stories. So again, my name's Patti. I am the mother of 2 college-age students, the mother of 2 fur babies. I am a wife of 28 years, very patient man, right? I'm the daughter of an immigrant. My dad came here when he was 19 and gave this country 8 US patents. I have spent the past 30 years in tech. I was the CEO of 2 startups, some good, some bad. Right? I now have worked for Invest Detroit for the past 11 years. I run the venture team. I've had the opportunity to invest in over 200 wonderful entrepreneurs across the state. So when we think about investment, where do our minds go? Right? We tend to go to Wall Street. We think about finance, investment bankers. And yes, the definition of investment is the allocation of resources with the hope to have a bigger gain. And so when we think about our bank accounts, right, and we start small, as hopefully early in our careers, it's like having a 401k or a pension, right? You start adding a little bit of money in, it compounds, and it grows bigger. Well, today I don't want to talk about the investment of money, right? We talk about that enough. I want to talk about the investment of time. And when we talk about things that are outside of our control, and that's so important here, there's so much out of our control today. There are things that are within our control, and time is one of those. So the first advice I would love to give everyone today is make sure you're being intentional and taking time to build your networks. You've heard that thread here today, right? Men, they seem to have an easier job in their careers, right? They get the access to the promotions, they raise money and more money a little faster than we do. They seem to get that job offer to the new company and advancing. And it's not because they're smarter or more talented than us, right? I would argue it's because they're taught early the power of relationships. Social clubs, sports, fraternities, they create a brotherhood. And that brotherhood gives them access to resources, to talent, to move faster. So look around the room. This is a sisterhood that we need to start building, right? Because the sisterhood also gives us access to resources and things that we need to succeed. So when I think about women, women tend to try to do it on their own. I am certainly, can take blame myself in this, right? And I don't know where that comes from, but it's, hey, no one had to help me get here. I was able to do this on my own. We create this false narrative that if we ask for help to get somewhere, that belittles what we've accomplished. So I see hundreds of companies a year that come through my investment doors. The teams, most of the teams are men, unfortunately, but the male-founded teams, they almost all have 2 or 3 male co-founders. And what do I find with my female-led teams? They're almost all solo. And what do we know about solo? It's hard, right? You know, what happens when the basement floods, the parent gets sick? You know, you just want to take a vacation, right? What happened to the point, at what point in our childhood did we go from stopping being cooperative and we become competitive with each other? What I want everyone to think about is who in their network helps them create a team for success. So that goes to the second piece, our all role in teams, right? And whether you work in the home or you work in an office, you work in a factory, it doesn't matter. We all belong to teams in our lives, right? But we have such an importance on how we build our teams. So how do we go about that? In my 30 years, the best teams are the ones where the leaders hire and the people who are better than them, who are smarter than them, more capable than them, because they know that that is how you build. There's a great quote by a gentleman named Zip Zipler. He was a sales guru. And he said, you know, you don't build your business. You build your people, and your people build your business. When I started off in venture, I often got the advice of, hey, you know when it's right, you know, an entrepreneur is a good fit, a relationship, because these are relationships for many years. You know it's a good fit if you want to go have a beer with someone. And you know, at first that made sense. Hey, I'd love to have beer, right? So let me find the people I want to have beer with. But I really think that's a false narrative and leads to suboptimal decision making, right? Because we're looking for people who are different from us, who have different experiences, who have different know-how. I was sitting on a DEI panel. I don't know if we can say that word anymore. I was sitting on a DEI panel, and there was just the most fantastic quote. And the woman said, when you're hiring, you're not looking for cultural fit. You're looking for cultural addition. We also have to uplift. And if you're a boss, you're uplifting your team members. If you're a team member, you're uplifting the other people in your team. We must uplift. We see in the news and on the TV shows and entertainment, women stomping on each other all the time, but that's not who we are, right? We are women that support each other. That's why you're all here. And all the women out there are like you too, right? We should be supporting and uplifting each other in our work, in our social spaces, in our lives. So my last piece of advice is to make sure that you invest in yourself. Now, I know you're saying, hey, you're telling me to invest in my network, you're telling me to invest in my team, now you're telling me to invest in myself. Hey, I'm holding on by a thread here, right? And I've been there. So I had an 18-month-old toddler. I was 9 months and 1 week pregnant, and I was asked to step into a CEO role of my first company, right? And I did not do it well. I shouldered all the responsibility on my shoulders, right? I had to, in my mind, I had to be the perfect boss, the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect daughter, gosh knows, everything, perfect. You cannot be perfect. That's not possible. And I also felt like an imposter, right? What was this 34-year-old woman with 2 little kids running a company of 20 people that made, why should I even be here? Why should I be on the stage today, right? So thinking about how do we let go of that, accept our strengths, accept the fact that we are here today, or I am up here on the stage. So I also think of equating it as, instead of having to be everything for everyone, remembering there's a reason why on the airplanes they say, put the mask on you before you assist others, right? Make sure you're putting the mask on yourself first. We all know what we need to do, right? We need to eat better, we need to meditate, which we did today, so cross that off the list. We need to have social connections. We need to sleep, sometimes not possible. But we all know it's not like a super secret. So my ask of you today is if you're not making that time because you don't think of that, you have that time, that this is an investment. Just like the dollars you're putting into your savings accounts, time is an investment. Take that 10 minutes for yourself, whether you call a friend, whether you take a walk, it doesn't matter, but start with 10. If you're already doing 10, great, add another 10 more. But the idea is if you can be healthy and happy in your own life, that then has that multiplier effect across. So with that, I just want to finish off. We accelerate ourselves back to the theme, right, by taking control of what we can control. And the things we can control are building our networks, building our teams, and most importantly, investing in ourselves. Thank you.
Please welcome the founder and Chief Executive Officer of CultureBee, Jasmit Kaur.
Hi, everyone. Hello. What a beautiful view. So, at an early point in my career, I led HR strategy for Microsoft's IT division in India. And this division had 1,500 employees. And these employees reported to 5 different leaders instead of a single leader. That was fun. Now, each leader was extremely capable, but when it came to making decisions, they looked out for their own specific groups. They did what was best for their own teams. And that made alignment on any personal decision nearly impossible. So in a conversation with my own management, I proposed something very politically loaded. Let's just consolidate leadership under one leader. And my boss looked at me like I'd lost my mind and said, well, she was very gracious, and she said, well, that's great, but where's the data? Where are the numbers? So it took me a couple of months, but I came back with data that showed how we had been hiring for duplicate roles that could have been shared across all these groups. A couple of months down the line, we hired a divisional leader. And I learned something from that. That to make a very successful case for change, data is essential. And it's one reason why I started my analytics company. But ever since, I've learned that data alone is just not enough. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar says that as human beings, we can know only 150 people really well. But between us, for women, that number is probably 200. But regardless of who we are, there's a limit, and that presents a challenge for leaders of companies, communities, and groups that have more than a couple hundred members. How can these leaders really understand their people, know what they feel and what they think? A common answer is to use employee surveys or engagement surveys, the thing that HR departments run once a year. But I'm here to tell you that you should not do employee surveys. Or rather, you should not expect them to tell you what you really need to know about your people. You see, employee surveys ask questions about morale and management. And sure, those things are really important, but they are symptoms of other things that matter much more for the purposes of decision making. For example, what you really want to know is, why did the sales numbers dip last month? Is our marketing team collaborating with our product team? And ultimately, what's coming in the way of employees giving their best? And for the most part, employees know answers to these questions. But most leaders do not systematically ask these questions, and so few leaders systematically listen to their people. So what does it mean to systematically listen to employees? I recommend something that I call deep listening. It's an artful blend of quantitative data with qualitative meaning, meaning that is gleaned from open-ended text comments that could come from surveys, from routine communication, from interviews, and so on. And I'll share 3 examples of deep listening in action with you. The CFO of a large manufacturing company that I worked with had invested over $500 million in a new and much-needed tech platform. But he was very worried because the employee adoption was very slow. So we ran a deep listening survey to understand what was preventing employees from using this new system. And among other things, we learned that hourly employees did not like the web-based trainings that were being offered to help them learn how to use this new technology. They wanted more in-person trainings. They wanted to be able to discuss real-life scenarios with real human beings. And once the company started offering these instructor-led in-person trainings, user adoption shot up by 30%. The safety department in an oil and gas company wanted to reduce the rate of safety incidents at one of their refineries. So they ran deep listening, very narrowly focused on understanding safety practices. And they learned that the frontline employees knew about the push for safety first from their top management. But their local supervisors had been pushing them for higher productivity. So deep listening uncovered this tension between productivity and safety. And with that insight in hand, the safety department was able to work with the head of operations of that refinery and ensure that managers were indeed practicing safety first. Over the course of 18 months, the rate of safety incidents for that refinery came down by 15%. A pharmaceutical company was losing employees to their competitors. And women were leaving at a higher rate than men. So they used exit interviews and surveys to understand why people were leaving, and they paid special attention to women's responses. They learned that women were feeling a glass ceiling, and they were able to connect it with other data in the organization that showed that senior leaders in the organization were unconsciously choosing to mentor junior men more often than women. And with this awareness and revelation, the leadership adjusted its mentorship practices. And because of that, more women were able to benefit from their coaching, advice, and sponsorship. And as a result of that, more women qualified for promotions. And over time, the overall rate of attrition for this company came down. So what makes deep listening distinct from typical employee surveys? And I promise this is the only academic-looking slide probably you'll see at this entire event. But I really wanted to drive home this point because people often confuse the two. So and there are three differences. One, unlike typical employee surveys that ask abstract questions about management and morale, deep listening is very outcome-focused. It asks questions that really make an impact on the business, like employee turnover, productivity, safety, or tech adoption. Two, deep listening caters to functions beyond just HR. It could be IT, it could be sales, it could be safety, it could be any department. And three, and most importantly, deep listening is not about numbers. It's not just about anecdotes. It's a combination of qualitative and quantitative information to explain the why that leads us to actionable insights. If you're in the business of leading or influencing people in any capacity, practice deep listening. Arguably, genuine listening comes naturally to us as women, so let's lean into that skill and apply it more strategically. Thank you.
Please welcome back JoAnn Chávez, Glaza, and Jasmit Kaur.
And I'm not leaving.
And to moderate the discussion,
I'm staying here.
Please welcome back Christy McDonald.
All right, here's the fun part where we get into the conversation. It was great. I was able to write down so many things that each of you were talking about, and I loved how we had, I think, similar themes along the way. I want to start off with, I think, a general question for all of you to kind of give us the state of where you feel women leadership can go in the different fields that you're in. And I'm going to start with you, JoAnn, because I think when you spoke about the fact that you said, I am going to do this next path for me, and it's going to be chief legal, and I'm going to create it for myself. So many of us, we don't have that path, or we're looking for the road. And unfortunately, if we can't create it for ourselves, then it doesn't happen for ourselves. So what would you say in terms of where you're seeing women's trajectory in the roles that you have?
I'm seeing obviously more women participate in these roles, but I see some of them when they take time off. So I didn't say this, when I took the 3 kids, I was single, they were 4, 5, and 6, and they were high risk. And I thought my career was over. And I had been a partner at KPMG. Huge accomplishment, international tax. I left that, and then I knew I had to get back to work. Oftentimes, when we leave the workplace or we leave the job that isn't exactly on point for us, we think everything is over. We need to become more innovative for ourselves and with ourselves, and also finding people that we can talk to about it. I had some sounding boards. I made up my list of things of why all my former jobs made me highly qualified for the chief legal officer role. And then I talked to people about it, and I got feedback. And so I think we have to go out and explore. So often we limit ourselves, right? We just believe that all we have is, where we're at today. And I think they always talk about the jungle gym, right? We have to we're agile for everyone else except for ourselves. And so I think women, all of them, whether you're a lawyer who's going to stop working, whether you're an accountant, whether you're anyone, because there are points in our lives that family should be first, family might have to be first. Don't view that as the end. View that as another stop on the train.
I think it's really hard, though, sometimes for people to explain that to an employer or to find a place that is going to support that. I call it froggering. You remember the video game Frogger? You're like, I'm going this way. No, I got to go this way. I got to go back. I got to jump at the log. And that's what I feel like my career has been as well. You've had to figure out and then also be in a place that supports that as well. Patti, let me ask you, when you look at, you're with Invest Detroit, entrepreneurship, also in, banking and investment, what are roles that you're seeing for women at the level that you're at? And, is there a pipeline and is there a pathway?
Yeah, so Invest Detroit right now, on the leadership team, we're all women except for one man. And I'm not saying that's the right balance, but there has been an acceleration of leadership. In the investment space, so I run the venture team, my colleague Kiona Cowan runs the lending team, and we control all of the deployment of investment across the communities that we serve. And there are more roles. So when I started in tech 30 years ago, no women, right? When I was working in advanced materials and energy, second decade, no women. As a CEO, no women. Now that I'm, kind of well into that third decade, in the venture space, in the entrepreneur space, we are seeing more women. Again, the solo piece has to stop. We do have to find the people we want to be, partner with. But the amount of women who are stepping into wanting to invest, right? And again, there's so many different types of investors, but I have seen an incredible growth in women starting to get into the field because, we had the great discussion earlier, right? If you can provide products to people who haven't had products before, the woman who, with the domestic abuse, right? You're starting to, because you have a different frame as a woman than a male does. So you can come up with new products or new ideas, new ways to approach the market. So I hope to see more women continuing to come into the field, but I would say I'm really impressed with the organization that I am with. which is probably why I've been there for so long, but the fact that women do have a place and can progress.
And again, it speaks to that, about having a supportive organization that says, yes, we are going to mentor, we're going to look down the pipeline and see who can we grow and bring up, because it's going to benefit everyone. Jasmit, let me ask you, when you think about that in terms of HR, and you work with companies in maintaining workforce, also growing workforce, and especially women in higher positions of power, and what would you say that you're seeing trend-wise?
Definitely, like in the last couple of years, there's been a higher velocity of effort put into enhancing diversity, representation, inclusion in organizations. In places where there was more focus on tying these things to business outcomes, like here's the business impact of what we are doing, there's longevity in those efforts. And where those efforts were more of a communication, like not talking points alone, and it was not backed by outcomes, I see those efforts fizzling away much more easily.
How do you have conversations, JoAnn, when you are asking to go to the next place, the next level, when you start to, Patti talking about assembling the team of people that you can have your kind of support. Sometimes it's hard to have those conversations about saying, I want to go to the next place.
It's interesting that you say that. Now that I sit at the senior committee, the executive committee, I hear so many instances of my peers talking about males in our company and how they all want to move to a different organization, even though they have no skills, right? They've never done these things. They're engineers, and I'll just make, I want to be an accountant, right? Or something like that, or I'm going to be the CEO. Yet you don't hear about women doing that very often. And I think the one thing I would say is that it's extremely important not to wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder, right? I think you have to have that network, and that network needs to be within the company. You must have, if you're a manager, you have directors. If you are a director, you have executives and senior executives. And you have to have trusted people within the organization that you can talk to about it. And that can start to, I hate to use the cliche, sponsor you, but they can start to advise you, because that's what you really need. I mean, that's what I did. And I'm pretty confident in my skills and everything. And I still ran my idea by some other people. But I think my most important thing is do not wait. Do not wait. I tell this to every member of my team. Who values your career most? You do. So why is everybody waiting for someone else to tell them what their next role should be? Why is everyone, and you can learn about the other roles by doing listening tours. Go visit people. Anyone that calls me, and I don't care what level they are, gets into my office. We chat about things, and then I give them a list of people to go visit. Because you don't always know what you want to do next. So I looked at my skills, I looked at the open position, and I thought, I'm going to figure out how to make this mesh.
I think it's also the guts to make the leap, too. And, Patti, you talked about how, I was CEOs of 2 startups. Some were good, some not so good, and you are in another place yet again. And having those iterations of a career of not staying in one place, of experimenting, being put in a role and saying, that didn't work out so great, so now I'm going to leap to something else. Tell us about kind of where you got that, I think, that power within you to make those leaps.
Yeah, I think you might have made the statement is it comes from the gut. You do have to trust your gut. I am a high learner, and that means that I am happiest when I'm learning in a position where I'm learning all the time. And my current job affords that to me. I get to meet all these new business and entrepreneurs, and there's so much happening in the tech space. But in my career, I've followed that as a guiding point. So when I stop learning, when I stop being able to really enjoy what I'm doing, because I'm stuck. And so I really try to listen hard to, what, my mind is telling me, but my gut is informing it, is that the things that are important to you. For me, it's learning. For others, it could be relationships. It could be, that those, hey, getting those promotions is really important to my self-worth, or hey, I want to be the most technically accurate data scientist on the planet, right? But what are the things that you value and are important to you? And what's a fit with your family life at the time, right? Having 2 little kids, super hard when you're running a startup. Is it possible? Absolutely. But is it easy? So you're balancing, right? You're always balancing, and I feel in my career, I've been able to take risks. One, because I've had a supportive family. They'll also feel like an orphan, or I'm an orphan as well. It doesn't matter how old you are. But that, you have supportive people around you, but you trust your gut in terms of what's important. Do I need to move on to find that stage? But that network, right? I was able to find new positions because I had a good network. Didn't start with one because I wasn't taught that, but as I learned over time how important that was, that's where I was able to make sort of these different transitions along the journey.
You jumped to other established organizations. Jasmit, what I think is interesting about you is you were in the corporate world, and then you created your own thing.
Yeah.
And I think there are, I'm sure, a lot of women and men in the room today who are entrepreneurs themselves who have said, I'm going to make the leap to create something for myself, and maybe I don't have everything in order, or did you have everything in order before you went out then on your own?
I'm like looking at Patti because I'm an entrepreneur, and of course, in Patti's ecosystem. So yeah, I often think about what I did, and it's immense joy because, to Patti's point, you do what you value, do what you love, you take risks that you're passionate about. But the 3 words that come to my mind is blood, sweat, and tears often. Oh my goodness, yeah, starting. So I did something really crazy, which was I was in the HR function. I saw that, when you don't have, sorry, I'm turning around to see you guys as well. Okay, so I saw that, when you don't have a lot of political power in an organization, you're not very seasoned, experienced, definitely network is amazing, having that is great, but data plays a very, very important role in shifting mountains in larger corporations especially. And I got so obsessed with it that I actually shifted my career. To Patti's point, you take those risks that you're really passionate about. So I went into the field of data science, and I started Culture Bee as a tech company that could really simplify how companies access information. And it was a blood, sweat, and tears. And honestly, I tell people, I haven't arrived yet. I'm still on my journey. So hopefully, a couple of years down the line, I can tell you where that journey ends.
I think we still are. JoAnn, did you say you're on your 3rd career in terms of, and reinventing? I have to mention, I think what is also the elephant in the room right now, when we talk about DEI, and where things are happening right now at the federal level, but taking it towards where our companies are. And JoAnn, let me ask you and start with you first. How do we keep inclusion initiatives in a corporate place or in our workplaces when using those phrases and using those words has become at odds with a lot of people in this country? I think it's a difficult conversation to have, but I'd like to hear from all of you on that.
Yeah, we've been having quite a few of those conversations. As you might imagine, as a publicly traded company, we had to evaluate our public disclosures and really begin to evaluate, do we just pull all the words? Do we just react? And I've been chatting with a number of general counsels across the country, and the sentiment seems to be right now that on the very conservative side, there are many people just pulling the language, right, but not stopping the work. I have not yet met one company that's stopping the work other than those public ones that you've all read about. So I think, here's what I would say. We've done nothing illegal. That's my job. I make sure we don't discriminate, we don't do anything illegal. So to penalize us for 3 words is ridiculous. Now, because I'm managing, investors, public stakeholders, the Michigan Public Service Commission, I'm going to think about the words I use, and we're going to do that. But we don't violate laws, right? In our resource groups, anyone can join. In fact, I'll talk about the Latino one. It has more allies than it does Latinos, right? A lot more. And in the women's ERG, there are men. And so the most critical thing, at least from my perspective, aren't the words. It's the work. And the work, if you were just doing it to check a box, it's going to go away. To your point, the data isn't there. But there's two statistics I want everyone to remember, and I think you all know this, right? Right now, 43% of the kids in K through 12 are Black and Latino. 28% are Latino and 15% are Black. Well, someone better include them. Or we're going to have a human capital crisis, right? And it's the same thing with women. Warren Buffett said, why would you operate a manufacturing plant at only 80% capacity? It's the same thing about operating the US economy. So this is not a DEI issue, I don't believe. I think this is about human capital. I think this is about investing in the next generation. I think this is about respect. I think this is about people. It is less about those 3 words. And if those people think that 3 words are really going to change something, and I apologize if I offend someone, but if people believe that by removing those 3 words, we're really going to change behaviors, they've got another thing coming.
Patti, let me ask you about the conversations that you're having with Invest Detroit, and because you specifically work with female entrepreneurs in trying to give them all the kind of help and capital and leg up that they need, because they do need it.
Yeah, so it is interesting, and I haven't figured out the why of this yet. Our rate of women entrepreneurs coming through our doors has shrunk since COVID. And I'm not sure if it's because of the safety net that was lost, the risk-taking, hey, I can't lose my health care, hey, it's just, we've been through too much as a family, I can't disrupt. I'm not sure. But it is something I am still trying to figure out. What's the data that will help us understand this? I like to believe wholly in my heart that if we just don't say the words, but we still act, that we can still make a difference. I don't know. I think there is still a good set of population out there that believes we shouldn't be in this room, we shouldn't be in the boardroom. I was running the Michigan Venture Capital Association last year as a chair. We ran a survey on, hey, tell us about your thoughts on DE&I, and just again, trying to get a pulse from our members. We had someone write back such a scathing message about why, as an organization, we would be taking on the mantle of DE&I. That's not our job, not our business. But yet we know the success rate that women entrepreneurs have. We know the success rate that women investors have. We know how important it is for women to be in the boardrooms. The data shows that, supports that. So I am nervous. I do think people will retrench a little bit. Hey, this place isn't open to me anymore, right? Like I don't have the opportunity to step forward. But that's within our control, right? We have to not let that mentality hold on to us, and we have to keep pushing forward. But I don't want to ignore that those words have importance. And for the reasons I was talking about before in the cultural addition, we've got to stay, those words still matter.
Jasmit, you get to weigh in on this.
I think JoAnn and Patti have said some things which are really I think give me hope that despite the pushback on the words itself, the essence hasn't been lost for the most part. And this is what will differentiate, I think, companies and leaders that have courage versus those who don't.
So I could talk to you guys forever, but unfortunately we only have about a minute left here. I don't know how it went so fast. So I think I'll ask a final question of all of you. because one of you brought it up in your speeches about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. And I wanted just to ask you personally, and Jasmine, I'll start with you. How do you put the oxygen mask on yourself first? What do you do in your life that helps you reground yourself before you can take care of everything else?
Can I share two things?
Oh, yeah.
I think one is my family. I think especially my 10-year-old son. He's, I think, just watching him grow, learn, it again gives me hope and optimism. I think that's one. I think the second is, as a female entrepreneur, making those tiny steps and trying to be that drop in the water to make a change for how investors, the community thinks about tech women entrepreneurs makes me feel joy. It's not great impact, it's just a drop in the ocean, but I think we can only make change by pushing on and not giving up.
Enjoy your 10-year-old son now. He's going to have a dirty dorm room in 8 Just going to tell you that straight off. Patti, what about you? How do you care for yourself?
Yeah, so this is so totally cliche. But when COVID hit, I bought a Peloton. And I think I am 280 weeks in, almost every day. I would say at least 6 days a week.
Awesome.
Meditate. I don't always, get on the bike, but I meditate. I do yoga. I carve out time so that I'm healthy for my family. I'm healthy for myself. But you also got to have hobbies. I started bottling my own spices. I love to cook. I love to travel. Right, and I make sure that I make time with my family and my husband to do those things as well. And you can only work so much.
Yeah.
And there's always something to do, always an email. You have to turn off the emails, you have to turn off the phones, you have to give your space, whatever gives you that joy. And you have to make the time for it.
Yeah, JoAnn.
Well, I have two things as well. During COVID, when I was stuck in my home office, it's funny because I'm back to the office and I really would prefer to be stuck in my office sometimes. I watched, there were some dead trees on our property and I wasn't moving around or anything, so I went and bought a chainsaw. I kid you not, I live on 6 acres. It's the joke of DTE now. It is a joke at DTE, but I chop down trees. I love it. There is something so cathartic about chopping down a tree. I have every size you might imagine. Every size chainsaw. They all laugh at me. I mean, my husband brought me a chainsaw for Christmas 2 years ago. But
that's hot, JoAnn.
I love it. But the other thing I did was I realized, and I think we all are probably guilty of this, I'm a caregiver for everyone, right? I was probably a caregiver for the people at work and a caregiver for the people in my house, and I never took care of me. And right after COVID, I went to get my annual physical and they said, "Lady, you're diabetic." And I'm Hispanic, we have diabetes, we have high blood pressure. I mean, we're just not healthy people. And so I decided, I made it the year of JoAnn, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. And so I have lost 60 pounds. My numbers have never been better, never. I didn't lose weight for clothes, I lost weight for life, for my family. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter, and I'm gonna watch her become a CEO, right? And so I think those are the things that we have to take time for. Choose your year. I call it the year of JoAnn. It's gonna be a century of JoAnn, or a decade of JoAnn, right? But we never take time for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking time for us today and sharing everything that you do and having this conversation. I know time is valuable and energy is valuable, so thank you for bringing yourself and your energy here today. Again, this is my favorite event every year. I hope you can take something from this today. We're going to be giving everybody complimentary chainsaws on the way out. Just to get after it. But on behalf of the Detroit Regional Chamber, thank you very much for being here. Accelerate the action, and we will see you next year. Woo!